Let's talk a bunch of different topics.
How'd her career get there?
This is a podcast with Lauren Asghari.
Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening. Hit that like button, leave a positive comment, or hit subscribe to get alerted when new episodes drop. All of this will help keep the project going. Thank you for your support and enjoy the episode. This is the Lauren Asghari podcast, How'd Her Career Get There? And my guest today is Jacquie Cohen Roth, who is the founder and CEO of numerous things, but most recently CannabizMD, and also recently named a Daily Record Top 100 Woman. So welcome, Jacquie.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much for having me. Excited to have this opportunity.
So let's get started. I know that you're involved in a bunch of different things. So let's start, kind of give some highlights about the types of businesses that you've founded or actively involved with, and then maybe just a high-level overview of what CannabizMD does.
Sure. Okay. So thank you for that. Yes. So essentially working with 4 entities, 2 of which are the most significant. The first one is CannabizMD, which opened its doors in 2017. CannabizMD is an education platform focused, as the name applies, in cannabis. The mission to educate, build, and engage a network of stakeholders committed to delivering optimal patient and product outcomes. Next up is nonprofit, the TPAD Foundation, known as TPAD. Launched that one in 2019. And the focus on that is to ensure equity in the cannabis industry. TPAD has evolved to focus on empowering women to advance in cannabis STEM. Let's see, next up is Canna Workforce, is a very unique workforce program for the Maryland cannabis industry, and we'll talk about that more. Funded by the Maryland Department of Labor and Earn Grant, employment advancement right now. And then lastly, adjunct professor at the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy, the Masters of Science in Medical Cannabis Science and Therapeutics. So cannabis.
And we're going to get to, I'm excited for this conversation because I'm sure our audience is interested in, why cannabis. So we'll get to that throughout our conversation. Yeah. But for starters, let's kind of give an overview or kind of get in our time machines and go back to when Jacquie was a little kid. Like, where did you grow up? What was your childhood like? What were some of your childhood traits? Let's start there.
Let's see, give you some insight. There's one of my favorite photos of me as a toddler where I was born in Oklahoma. Couldn't tell you anything about it other than the photographs. My family moved out and I essentially was raised outside of Syracuse, New York, but I was literally tied up so I wouldn't take off. I mean, tied up on a line, not tied up, hands bound, but the energy came on strong very early on. I had a really unique childhood where youngest of 4 sadly lost our oldest sister. Again, grew up outside of Syracuse, New York, running wild in the woods. A lot of animals, rescue animals. My parents were voracious readers. So I was a kid, believe it or not, but this is where the intellectualism began, is sitting in a chair and reading the Encyclopedia Britannica. I knew every dog breed, and creativity, a great deal of hustle. My first entrepreneurial initiative was at age 10. It gives you some insight into to what it was like.
And what were you doing at the ripe age of age 10?
At 10, yeah. Well, my dad was a physician, so that's where the introduction to science, and science being such an important part of who I am and what I do. But I had hustled my second sister, who's now a physician, into, I'd say, maybe my first VC, where she funded my entrepreneurial endeavor to sell white mice to all my friends as pets. And I still have that contract. My dad had always, if I wanted something, or if we wanted something, we need to write a contract, which was just brilliant parenting move. So ended up with a ping pong table full of white mice in cages. They ended up cannibalizing. It wasn't pretty.
Did you get any sales there?
Probably not. I don't remember that part, but I just laugh and I still laugh about it with my sister.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Mhm.
When you were a kid, what do you remember as either from your parents or just other I'll call them like mentees or other people like just around you as a child? What's like one or two personality traits, and who'd you get them from that you think have carried you through or serve you well still today?
Yeah, that's such a great question. Um, yeah, it was definitely with my parents where when my father was first generation. So I lean in a lot to my matriarchs, both my maternal and paternal grandmothers who came from disparate backgrounds. But my maternal grandmother couldn't read or write any language, but could speak seven. And she was an immigrant, escaped the horrors of World War One, and made it out of a village that she was told she could stay and get her throat slit or run.
Mm.
And so she has quite a powerful story. And then my maternal grandmother as well has her own story. But growing up with that foundation of literally we can do anything, and as an adult, I've had some real tests of my resilience, but that determination, the hustle, intellectualism, as I said, with my father being a physician, science, my mother, voracious reader, studied, I think, every religion known to mankind.
Mm-hmm.
So great foundation, very grateful to them for what they introduced me to. And that sense of giving back in the community was huge. I live my life by do my best actually to live my life by a Hebrew principle, tikkun olam, that's Tikkun, the second word Olam, which literally means repair of the world. In essence, it's to leave your campsite better than you found it.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
What, when you were younger, did you even think about, or did you have visions of what, as you grew up into a career, you were interested in
Oh,
doing?
sure. Yeah. The first one I can remember, I always wanted to be a mom. So I did that. But that was paramount. That was number one. So, figuring out how everything that I wanted to do to save the planet. But I remember as a kid, constantly asked, do you want to be a nurse and help your daddy? And the answer was always, no, I'm going to be a doctor and be his boss. So that's set the foundation there. And my father, raising in the 60s, 70s, and anything was possible. You just had to study and work for it.
Mm-hmm. What, so take us through, so you grow up in upstate New York. Take us through when you went to college, did you know that you were going into medicine then? Take us through kind of your college years, what you studied, and then when you graduated, kind of where your career went.
Yeah, definitely not a straight line. So yes, went to college with the idea that pre-med, biology major, mono, hit the was at Allegheny College in Western Pennsylvania. Weather might have been even worse than Syracuse, at least on par. But that was trimester, that first trimester, sophomore year, nasty case of mono.
Ugh.
And taking calculus, taking organic chemistry. And I don't remember this course, but it was something related to international politics and international relations. And was diagnosed later in life. It wasn't a diagnosis when I was a kid, but ADHD. And so sitting in classrooms where it was, I remember this huge lecture hall, organic chemistry, trying to pay attention, and rather painful. And, with mono, my dad wanted to teach me a lesson. I don't know why this one, but wouldn't let me come home. So I had to stay in the infirmary. This was pre-internet. It was just a really awful existence. But this one particular class, with a retired diplomat. It caught me. And he said, if this is what you want to study, where organic wasn't a friend of mine and nor was calculus, you need to go back to Syracuse, go to the Maxwell School of Citizenship and Public Affairs at Syracuse University. So I transferred out, changed my major. I was so afraid to tell my dad. And he just, it was just, whatever you want to do, whatever is going to make you thrive, be passionate about what you do, all those good things. So ended up transferring back home, but I'm really proud of the degree that I have from Maxwell. It's actually a double major and a minor. That crazy. I did it in 3.5 years. But it's a BA in economics, a BA in policy studies with a minor in international political economies.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So, that creativity, while I was raising my kids, a lot happened prior to this, but then, I want to be an architect. And my mother did a beautiful thing. I lost her relatively young in my early 30s, but while I was raising my kids in those early days, she gave me a gift of a course courses every semester that got me away and focused on what I wanted to do. So I started down the road of becoming an architect with 3 little girls, 9 and under. Oftentimes taking care of somebody else's child. The husband, my ex-husband, married at the time, he was gone 4 nights a week, I think it was. He was setting up a firm in another city, law firm. And I would get home from school Thursday nights, and I could always count on my youngest one starting to cry, I miss daddy. And I would cry, I miss daddy too. And it was too much. So
how old are you ish around this time?
I am early 30s.
Okay.
Yeah. So I put those studies on pause, but I learned so much that I use to this day. The elements of design. It was a really intriguing coursework, and then I went on to graduate school in my late 50s, so I got it done.
So were you graduate school in architecture or something?
That was in the Masters of Science and MS in
okay.
Cannabis Science and Therapeutics.
Okay, gotcha. Right. That tracks.
Yeah.
And when you were raising your kids, so you were working out of the home, right? Not in your husband was the income provider, and you were working out of the home. What was that? You're obviously a very intelligent, ambitious woman. What was that decision like? And was that an easy decision for you?
It was really hard, actually, and this is where a lot of my resilience comes from. I recognize and honor that, but backing up with that those graduate degrees, what I wanted to do was run World Bank. So I've always had these very modest goals.
Yeah.
And so
come a long way from the mice on the table.
Yeah. So to get there, I started off as a bank teller. No, I had met the husband. He was in law school. We both wanted to be part of a campaign. Longer story that I'll shorten quite a bit, but we moved to Maryland to work on Senator Paul Sarbanes' reelection campaign, which was a phenomenal experience. He was such a gentleman, brilliant, his family, all good things. So a phenomenal introduction to leadership in the state of Maryland. Here I am, this hugely capable human being, and definitely sexism. I was not getting into this training program where the bank was no longer in existence. There's another one by the same name, but this isn't it. But First National Bank and First National Bank of Maryland. And I had a supervisor who targeted me and wouldn't allow me to advance. He always put me in a branch nearby. He created something called the A-Team. This is, again, going back to the 80s, with whoever played those roles.
Yeah, Mr. T and
Mr.
whatever
T,
that show.
Yeah. So rough time is he, one day he backed me into a bank vault. And I have a scar on my back to this day. Filed an EEOC complaint. That got a call one day while I was on break. I had run home from a branch that I was working and got a call from the bank president. Jacquie, we would love to have you part of our management training program. So that's how that went down.
Mhm.
So that was an EEOC, and it was resolved. So,
Good for you.
yeah, it was quite a battle, and a really awful experience to go through as a young 20-year-old. I really didn't have an idea of what was going on. And this is what, shout out to millennial women of raising the awareness of abuse, workplace, what it looks like. Also, getting really personal. This is why he is an ex-husband. When things got ugly, I was told that I wouldn't be able to get a job at McDonald's. So that he made me afraid that I wouldn't be able to take care of myself, that I would lose custody of my girls. So that was always in the back of my mind. So that makes it real.
How do you,
So, yes.
how do you, I don't want to just move past that. I want to spend just another
Yeah.
minute or two on that. How do you, because I know women that are capable, intelligent, but they get fed a narrative, usually from their spouses, right? In that kind of mentally or verbally abusive way. How did you get past that though, right? And what kind of input or advice would you have just based on your kind of lived experience for the people who are getting that narrative and they start after a while, whether it's true or not, they might start to believe it. How did you free yourself of that?
Yeah, decades actually, in a lot of therapy. It wasn't until the marriage, the girls were out of the house. My youngest one was in college when the marriage ended. Again, let's see, my mom died when I was just shy of 35. The relationship that I had with my parents had been triangulated by this person I had been married to. So, so much that I know now that again, we didn't have the resources that are available now to recognize this isn't healthy. There were a lot of red flags that I had from almost the day that I met him. But it was so, I had never experienced anything like it. I saw my parents' marriage, and, people like this, and I spent a lot of, as I get healthier and healthier, was thinking about that. And you hear about, strong women like myself. It's like, how do we get entangled with these human beings? So yeah, that's a whole other podcast.
Right. Well, I know I have a very good friend of mine who is, intelligent, ambitious, list the things of amazing qualities in people. And her soon to be ex-husband is just such an asshole. And it's been interesting as far not doing it service, but to watch the evolution of her kind of coming into her power in that area and saying, no more.
Yeah. And it's, and then the power has become even stronger. Is that, wait a second, I've done what I've done in such a short time. When I look back and, when I started dating the fantastic guy that I'm with now, I think one of the first things out of my mouth, I'm not going to be a kingmaker. And somebody had called me that one time. And it's, that to fight back of what's been holding you back. And that it was fear. It was fear on the ex's part is that, I would have kicked the shit out of I was, And, it's weak human beings that do that. And, and we see it, unfortunately, mostly the outcomes with women's mental health.
Yep. Well, as you, let's bounce back to, and then I want to come back to, there's this pattern of resilience. And I think also something to acknowledge, which we'll talk about a little bit later also is, at the time that some of these things were happening in your life, it's interesting. There weren't, it's like nowadays, it's a different world nowadays than, 20 years ago. Right. But there's more resources available now. life is arguably more, I don't even know if I'll call it more complex. There's just, with just the internet and all these things out there, there's just a lot more things coming at people. But there's more resources available. Like even when I think about like ADHD, right? That wasn't a thing that was, necessarily talked about.
No, it wasn't a diagnosis.
It wasn't a diagnosis, right? So I look at like all the, sexism, just all the this kind of through line of resilience in your life. So I want to come back to that in a second, but on the career path part, so you are, take us from your early 30s, you're working, out of the home, raising your children, and take us to how you get to where you are today, career wise, and then we'll go unpack some of the other stuff.
Sure. Yeah. When I'm in school studying architecture, and I remember looking at, it was a tabloid, before print died. So it was a parenting newspaper. And there was an ad, essentially help wanted ad. And I thought, I'm the target market. They want to sell to me. So got the gig. And my youngest one was, I think, 4, or I know she was 4. So the others were 6 and 8 and 7 and 9, etc. And in any event, so I would bring my 4-year-old to meetings, and she had a little plastic cell phone put on her belt, and it was just adorable. But so that was they had a great deal of independence. My job was just go and make money for myself and the publisher, and made some great contacts. Actually, a client that I had from 1994 that we just reconnected on LinkedIn. But then I was recruited by a fellow who was starting one of was the first glossy lifestyle magazine in Maryland. It was a beautiful magazine that he had this concept to get off the ground. And so I joined him. One thing led to another. We built out that beautiful publication, built a team that I led. And let's see, then what happened? Somebody was threatened by me, another dude, and I made up a story about what I was or wasn't doing, got fired. And then I went and I had a dear friend at the time who she's passed, had an incredible, beautiful custom stationery design company, international. Like she just did the best of the best. And I got her website up. So knowing nothing about it, but just did the work and met the right people, and that creativity that I've always had. And, going back to the coursework in architecture and design. And anyway, I was doing some consulting in that space. And then that fellow who had started a lifestyle magazine reached out to me and said, "Oh, I'm in healthcare publishing now. Do you want to come and take over this magazine that I started?" His wife was a physician moving out of market. And I ended up taking over this publication that he had done. I think I had said, I never want to do a startup again. I think I made some comment like that, where I actually ended up getting that publication it was focused in Maryland, up and running. Then I grew another market in DC, Virginia, ultimately then combined these into one publication. And that became Chesapeake Physician, Your Practice, Your Life. And so that brought in my science, that brought in my medicine, my studies, everything that I had done. And I was my own boss. So, and I was working out of my house. So that was a fantastic opportunity. I run from my company was named Mojo Media, and that was running from 2004 to 2017.
Awesome. And then what gets you into cannabis?
Yeah, well, so been I say in the industry for decades, and but also though the industry watching it, here's my policy background, here's my economics background, is that and with healthcare is California became the first state to legalize medical cannabis in the mid-90s. And so paying attention to that, and as the industry starts to move east, And so this was 2013, was published in my magazine, working with all the large healthcare systems in the region. And 2013, the Maryland legislature passed medical cannabis. It didn't open its doors to patients literally until 2017, but in 2013, the Maryland Medical Society, MedChi, brought in a phenomenal physician named Dr. Dustin Sulak in to speak to physicians. And knowing that the experience of my father as a physician, my sister talking to a brick wall, if we're going to talk about anything, particularly her was the one who had the most conversations about just the stigma related to cannabis. But I'm always up for challenge. And so I, started in my brain 2013 looking around. Well, there's no platform out there like what I was doing with Chesapeake Physician that was focused on clinical innovations, policy, law, best practices, HR, digital healthcare was brand new, telehealth. And so we started to include in an annual special section alternative treatment therapies. It's just raising awareness. Mm-hmm. There's a thing called medical cannabis that's coming your way. And started that conversation about alternative therapies, and again, specifically cannabis. So that happened.
And what, like when you look at that industry as a whole today, and mm-hmm. I'm kind of in my mind doing it maybe 5-10 minute blocks in the past, and then leaping forward, and then present day. When you look at that industry as a whole, where do you see it? And you can talk at the federal level or the state level. Just where do you see it evolving? What changes do you think have happened for the better, for the worse? The good mm-hmm. parts of it, the underbelly of it that people don't necessarily highlight or talk about. Just kind of your overall insights.
Yes. Well, let's start with the name CannabizMD. So founded it in 2017. And the MD is a focus on medical. And it's a shout out to where we were born, Maryland. Mm-hmm. So it's been a purposeful double entendre. So my focus with cannabis science and cannabis policy and business has been on the medical side, but you cannot avoid and disregard adult use, recreational. And the industry started off very medically focused and then shifted to very much a rec focus. And we are seeing, and we're going to see the shift back. And I think, as I finding a middle lane, there are, we talk about within the industry, a few lanes. So there's the adult use, there's the strict medical, there's the wellness, where it is CBD, mm-hmm. And then the pharmaceutical aspect of it as well. So there is conversation now, and it started at federal level with Biden towards the end of his term, was giving the recommendation or the directive to one of the federal agencies to look at is there truly scientific medical benefit of cannabis? And yes. And then in the current administration, there has been noise about rescheduling, as it's referred to, taking it from a Schedule 1, which is the most restrictive, having no therapeutic medical benefits, to a Schedule 3. I don't believe anything that comes out of the current administration. And there's also follow the money. If somebody's going to make a lot of money from it, we're going to see some activity. Mm-hmm.
And just for perspective, level 1, I think you said level, but level yes. 1 is like what? Like heroin? Like
heroin, LSD, highly addictive, very simply highly addictive and having no medical benefit.
Right.
And then you go to schedule, and then with that, what comes are the challenges working in the industry, even hitting CannabizMD. And actually, there's a great story where as part of when I interviewed the then dean of the school pharmacy, when I met her, but where was I? Oh, so with Schedule 1, are there severe banking restrictions? Because this is a federally legal industry. So even though I'm not commercially growing the plant, processing it, making it into different products and selling it, I cannot get any SBA funding. So I have been successful at getting some state grants. When I met those folks leading the programs, Jackie, you're great. You're a poster child for what we want to do. And it's like, is this SBA money? Yes. You're not going to be able to give it to me. So banking, highly restrictive. I can't get a traditional bank loan. So that's being an entrepreneur, being a female entrepreneur, and I'm still kicking. Says a lot to resilience and hustle.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that the base, like when CannabizMD, like their client base is serving like the industry as a whole, right? So like would somebody hire you for, like, I don't want to say like lobbyist type work necessarily, but I mean like that type of.
I have done that where I'm not a registered lobbyist, but I have had clients where I've supported. I just went through with the state my own advocacy on some legislation that just passed on Monday that for a specific course that I developed, state mandated education, a new law wiped out 50% of my total addressable market. So there is a power pivot in play. But that's what this industry is, that we're working with this framework that is so rigid. Yet you have to be able to figure out, all right, how am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? What's this idea? What are the opportunities? Shout out of that. And so I do see, with a change in administration, that we're working on it, that there will be federal rescheduling of cannabis that will change how the industry operates. We're seeing, every state has some sort of program at play that, yes, medical still illegal in just a handful of states, but CBD, somebody can get their hands on it and anywhere because it's federally legal. Somebody can always get their hands on cannabis and figure it out, but it's, to play within those regulations and purchase within that regulated industry, that it's safe. Those are safe products and people know what they're doing with it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've seen, obviously it's some medical dispensaries in Maryland or, in Colorado from a recreational perspective. And I'm not a big cannabis user, but I obviously have friends that are, and so I've gone into the stores with them. But there is an education, like when I feel like people sometimes have this view of it, they have this imagery of it in a way that is not like, when you go into these dispensaries, they're typically educated and from a recreational or medical use, right? Like educated staff, like a prescribed dosage. Like it's, I feel like there's a lack of just education on it in general, because people just have these preconceived notions and putting them as that, Schedule 1 instead of like taking the time to kind of educate themselves on the real medical and health benefits of it. Because I've seen some of those firsthand.
This industry is incredibly complex. You have cultivation, which is agriculture. You have processing, which is making the products, which is manufacturing. You have dispensaries, which are retail. Behind that, I had an event that I hosted. I think it was 2019. Cannabis and innovation. There's so much data. I mean, in any well-run business, you're paying attention to data, making those decisions when you look at your sales, what your manufacturing output, all that. And it is an incredibly complex. I do hit my head up against the walls several times a day, seemingly metaphorically. With you spoke to education, that is the foundation of everything that I do. Because this industry, the operators who are within those three verticals operate under IRS rule named 280E, where cannabis companies are actually taxed at an exceptionally high rate, essentially 70%, where a traditional business is taxed at a rate about 23%. So yes, and so what happened because of Schedule 1 and 280E, customary write-offs a cannabis company can't do, education for their team being one. So, which is, hey, industry, you know how many studies there are that support that? Oh, there's one study I can't bring to mind, but I think it's like you get an ROI of 347% with a trained team.
Mhm.
So I do have the one client that I'm really proud to be working with. This client's a dispensary in DC that's about to open up. And I have created and am educating his team. He went to the University of Maryland, the School of Pharmacy, to find a consultant out of my graduate program to educate his team, to educate the customers that are going to be coming to his dispensary. So I do see, with you, I didn't answer that question directly with what's going to happen to the industry, where there's been in the rec market, a flavor of the month, so to speak, on a rapper, on an influencer to come out with a brand. Those folks, you see what happens, they don't last. But if you follow a pathway that makes sense, that you have a trained team, you're making sound decisions, you're using data, you're gonna not only survive through this, but you're gonna thrive as a business owner.
Yeah, and I feel like there's just an overall trend in a lot of areas. And I don't mean trend like a moment in time. I just mean that the direction that we're currently heading of people starting to educate themselves more just on their health and wellness and what's
Right.
in different areas. And, when you talk about like CBD, like just different benefits of that. So I'm hoping that just in general, health education continues, this being one avenue of that.
Yes. And I just, here's a PSA is friends don't give friends edibles. So I just want to throw that one out is, I have a number of stories of, Betty, my 80-something-year-old neighbor saying to me, Jackie, I heard cannabis is going to help my husband who was in his 90s, had dementia. No, it's not. But it might help you with the stress that you're under, but don't do anything before you talk to me. Well, so that story doesn't end well. But I just want to, is to put out the messaging there is, yes, educate yourself, but talk to people who are educated. We have studied, we know the science. CBD doesn't work well with a blood thinner. If you're taking a CBD edible and you're on, one of the most popular statins, warfarin, it can make your warfarin ineffective. So that's big, scary stuff. So that's why, having an educated industry and if you're a consumer is talk to folks who have the education.
And thank you that's a very important point. So thank you for pointing out that distinction. This isn't go, read WebMD and diagnose yourself on what you need. Yeah, get a professional from the science standpoint. So thank you for that distinction.
Sure.
So I want to go back a little bit and talk about this. This is kind of a two-part question. There's obviously a theme of resiliency just throughout your life and throughout your career. I want to talk about that, and I think you might know where I'm going with this question, but the first part of the question is talk a little bit about the integration of being a mom, being a wife, working, being ambitious, just how you integrate those things.
Yes.
And then I know that you also had some tragedy on the personal side as it relates to, your personal life and children. So if you could, whatever level you're comfortable sharing about.
Yeah. I mean, if I can help somebody through what I went through, there's a reason to be. I lost my daughter, Kyle, almost exactly 2 years ago. It was 2 years ago on April 14. Sudden, out of absolutely nowhere, what we think the autopsy was a heart attack, heart disease. And this had been a Division I athlete that kept up that level of training and athleticism. So what we think, there was, it doesn't matter to me now, but there had been some noise in the media about millennial age women having cardiac issues related to the COVID vaccine. So I don't know. But in any event, so, bottom line on that experience is that I have survived and consider myself thriving 2 years after that. I'm not scared of anything. Life has thrown me the worst. And I went through something very significant last summer called complicated grief, where it's this one ugly bundle of seemingly every mental health disease wrapped into one, because I tried to muscle through my grief, and you cannot. Your body comes back and says, oops, nope, you got to stop, girl. And so got through that. and being the overachiever, so you got to do the work. You just have to do the work if you're going to make it through that. So, and with that is, going back and thinking about my matriarchs, and what they survived and what, they can make it through. But, now is hey, Jackie, look what you've done. I'm not afraid of anybody or anything. When I was married, and this is something that I would say to women who are in those early career days, number one, it's you. Always you. I did not put myself there. If you are not the priority, your health, your fitness, everything that matters to you, it's not going to work. I have a very strong visual. I'm very much a visual learner of the oxygen mask. And mine is duct taped on, that orange thing with wrinkly duct tape around me, but that sucker's staying on now. And and then it's with the relationship that you have with your spouse, with your partner, number two, and then your kids. That whole paradigm and the of the model was completely upside down and backwards and twisted every which way during my marriage. So yes.
Those are it's interesting. This is a couple of years ago. I run a business, and it wasn't nearly, it was work related stress, but I was like, okay, I can push, I can push through this. And I usually don't carry stress more than like a week or two. Like I find a solution, or once I have a plan, I can usually, deep, get it out of my system. But I was like, okay, I can carry this. And it wasn't grief. It was stress related to work. I was like, oh, I can push through this. I can push through this, blah, blah, blah. And then eventually, my blood pressure, I have normal blood pressure, never had an issue with it. And then I started getting dizzy and my blood pressure was extremely high, and it was all related to this. And I'm just going back to your point about you can't whether it's grief, whether it's stress, whether it's, I can't even imagine. And I appreciate you sharing it, because I think it's so, I just know that I'll get messages from people that hear you dealing or have dealt with. I don't even know if you ever deal with a loss like that, but for you to share
it's managed.
It's managed. And just acknowledge that you can't white knuckle through that. You have to feel it, or else your body will tell you otherwise.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's important too, to make sure that we're listening to, what we're being told by our bodies in terms of how we're responding to things, and not ignoring that and putting your own health or mental well-being at risk then.
Yeah. Thank you for underscoring that message. Yeah. And that's to find, as a career, and what, in mentoring young women, which is what I love to do, is, to be successful, you have to find what you're passionate about and what you're willing to work, 70, 80 hours a week, if that's what you want to do. And at times it's often going to be necessary to do that. And then to find the right partner who celebrates you, who supports you, who makes you laugh, who's there and holds you up when you're falling apart. Yes.
Yeah. I think the partner piece is one of the most underrated aspects that people don't give enough airtime to. That if you have the right partner, your mental space can be free, and you can do a lot more than if you don't. It's really, really much more impactful than we talk about. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. What a difference is, I've been in this relationship, he's going to love all this attention he's getting for 6 years, and just, to recognize that I've essentially lived my life in fight or flight. My first serious traumatic event was when I was 12. And to come through, as I say, I'm not all the way through the looking glass now, but I had that realization maybe within about the last 2 months is, wow, I'm sleeping. And it's not this constant state of what's coming at me, what do I have to be ready for? Who's going to say what? Who's going to do what? And nope, you're safe. I walk in the house and, sometimes I can't say allowed him, but that would be true. To be in my house every night and make dinner, he would. He loves that. So I was like, wow, I walk in my house, somebody's fed and walked my dogs, there's dinner waiting. It's like, what?
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I feel like there's always like a karma, like the universe is providing for you in that sense now,
Oh, I mean, I've had 2 mental health professionals say, Jackie, the universe sent him to you. He's your angel. It's like, all right, you guys studied this stuff seriously. So
Yeah.
maybe you'll pay attention and think it's true.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. What would you, if you were giving advice to somebody who is maybe a little bit further in their career, and when I say that, I'll say anywhere between 10 and 20 years into their career.
Okay.
And they're not finding interest or passion in what they do anymore. And obviously there's a practical side, right? People have to pay bills. Let's assume that like bills can be
Right.
right. But what advice would you give somebody who's looking to make a career change? And then part 2 of that question is, what advice would you give somebody who's fresh out of college?
Okay. Yeah. The part 1 is the career change, which actually through CannabizMD Academy, I've had a few women who are actually making those career pivots. So they're coming from couple place of necessity where they've been laid off. And there's that story, everybody has a cannabis story, whether it's a direct story or it really helped somebody that I know. And so to look at where you are now in that career, you're not happy, but what do you like to do? Again, that goes back to what's your passion, what drives you? And then look at an industry, if it's not cannabis, but if it's another industry that you can apply the skill sets. Don't be afraid. Is that I had that imposter syndrome when I was applying to grad school in my late 50s. And, a couple of awards later, I was like, this great partner, we're coming out of an award I got, and he takes his foot and he pushes it down on the ground and squish. He said, Jackie, there's your imposter syndrome. So don't be afraid. It is scary, but lean into that. It's also, it's energizing. I'm doing something new. I'm doing something different. With a young adult coming out of college, same kind of thing as, what were those favorite courses that you took? I look back and, oh my gosh, I loved when I was in high school, home ec. So one of the assignments was to design a bathroom. Crazy enough, the bathroom that I have today looks like what I designed in high school. But it's, taking and having that passion for learning, being open to learning and new experiences. It's hard. I'm not going to say making a pivot. I mean, it's really hard.
Mm-hmm. What, if you could like pick 1 or 2 traits for people kind of early, I've two more questions and we'll get to rapid fire. For people that are like early in their career, like 1 or 2 traits that you're like, hey, you've got to show up to work and have these 1 or 2 traits, no matter where you work, no matter what you're doing, these are important traits to have.
Yeah. Commitment. It's commitment. Show up. That's number 1. When somebody gives you an opportunity, take it. And thank them. That's a huge frustration that I have, that I see. I don't know if it's COVID related. I don't know if it's social media related, but what Gen X, Gen Z, maybe wherever it is, thank you for this opportunity, but no, thank you, is follow through. Mm-hmm. And what that looks like, and recognize that you're going to have bumps along the way. And where you are at 22 absolutely isn't going to define you at what you're doing in your career at 50.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that exact line. What's one thing that you, like one specific thing that you remember, or one specific mistake that you made that you still remember, like just at any point in your career that you like did something, you're like, oh crap, whoops, lesson learned there.
Me and Excel. Along with that ADHD, it's dyslexia. And so I learned this was one of the primary reason for a pivot, where I closed Mojo Medium. And it was what was going on in healthcare with 100% behind the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, as it's known, is healthcare became siloed. And so that was what was going on as I started to see the impact is where I was working with these large systems, MedStar, University of Maryland Medical System, Inova, et cetera, on what is known as physician engagement strategies. So how to drive referrals, how to get the physicians in the community to drive their patients to go to XYZ service line. And I had a project with one of the large systems where at the end of the year, everybody had gotten paid. I think I had 10 1099s working on this project with me. I did not get paid. And it was $100,000. And it was shit, this is big. And I had a phenomenal admin at the time who she was in another part of the home office. She had just printed out all of our spreadsheets. And I never forget, Jackie, I found it. You did not carry over this one column throughout the year. And that's where that $100,000 hit. And so I had a phenomenal fractional CFO who just worked me through. This might go back to, answering that, what would you do in college? I wish I had taken, I was very much economics, big thinking, policy, big thinking. Wish I had taken more finance courses to really zero in. But in any event, so I went to this healthcare system, the senior VP, and I said, hey, so seems I made this error, laid it all out. I knew my spreadsheets up and down and backwards. May I please have $80,000? No, you may not. We'll give you 20. So what I learned is that I do not work myself with spreadsheets at all. Work with somebody who this is their area of expertise, and I've working my way through.
There you go. Stick to what you're good with, but knowledgeable enough elsewhere.
Right, and that goes to answer the question in a bigger picture is find people that you work really well with that know things better than you do. Know what you don't know and own it, and then find those people that do and work with those.
Yep, love it. All right, last question before we do our rapid fire. How do you define success?
I just immediately popped into my brain is happiness, which sounds kind of lame, but I'm a happy human being. Mentally stable. I'm with the right people, kind, good people around me. My kids are happy. I've got a grandbaby, everybody's thriving. Money, I'm making money. I can do things that I want to do with my life. I've got a great partner. That's success.
I love it. I think that's beautiful. All right, rapid fire. These are 5-6 questions, just whatever comes to mind first. Grass or sky?
Grass or sky? Well, that's a really funny question to ask somebody in the cannabis industry.
On 420.
Right. I say sky.
Beach or snow?
Oh, beach.
Dine in or eat out?
That's a tough one. Dine in as long as I'm not doing the cooking.
Okay. Moon or sun?
Sun.
East Coast, West Coast?
East Coast.
Swim or ski?
Ooh, ski.
And last one, astronaut or deep sea diver?
Deep sea diver.
All right. All right, Jackie, I'm going to wrap us up. But before I do that, is there anything that you want to cover or mention that we have not yet talked about?
Let's see. We talked about CannabizMD. We talked about the TPAD Foundation. We talked about the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy, Medical Cannabis Program. Canada Workforce, really cool program that I co-lead, where we are training the and underemployed to work in the regulated cannabis industry, funded by Department of Labor grant. It's just end this on, think about wherever you are in life is what do you like to do? And it's funny enough, here I am as light bulb went off. I was like, oh, clearly I like to educate. It's also another reason to talk a lot, which I also like to do. So
think about what you're good at and what you're interested in doing, and try to find something in that
Exactly.
in that vein. In that
Exactly.
vein. I love it. And we will link up all of the organizations and websites that you mentioned. So we'll link those up. And then what if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn. So Jacquie Cohen Roth
Okay.
on LinkedIn. Mhm.
Perfect. Well, Jacquie, thank you so much for your time. I could honestly sit here. Your energy beams through not only that beautiful
Thank
lime
you.
green jacket that I love and already complimented you on, but your energy just beams through. And I know that our audience is going to get a lot of value from a whole bunch of different areas that you talked about today. So thank you again for your time and for being a guest.
Lauren, thank you so much for this opportunity. It was a blast.
Wonderful. And to the audience out there, we will see you next time on the Lauren Asghari podcast, How'd Her Career Get There? And again, my guest today was Jacquie Cohen Roth. Thanks so much and see you next time.
Let's talk a bunch of different topics.
How'd her career get there?
This is a podcast with Lauren Asghari.